With all of the critical acclaim from journalists and fans over the years, it really is no surprise that The Last of Us is being brought up in the mainstream media over and over again. Whether it was the initial release of the PS3 game that started it all, to the remaster for the PS4 and now PS5, to the subsequent sequel, which brought along a wave of controversy. It's honestly quite impressive to see the impact that Naughty Dog's franchise has had on gaming and pop culture as a whole over the years. Now fast forward to 2023 and we now have a live action version done by none other than HBO. And if you guys enjoyed the first game as much as me, then maybe you're cautiously optimistic for the TV adaptation, because it's not enough to just see the characters we know and love in live action. In order for the show to hit as hard as the game did, to me they have to nail a couple main lessons and themes that the first game displayed masterfully. What are those lessons? Let's take a look. Now one thing to note before we get started, I'll be focusing on the first installment of the franchise, since the plot of the show will loosely be following this. If you haven't played the first game, there will be spoilers, so save the video and come back to it once you're all caught up. With all that said, let's look at some of the key lessons from The Last of Us, and how it hits us right down to our core. The Last of Us reminds us that there's always a chance for redemption, and that it's never too late for a second or third chance.
None of that is on you.
Oh, you don't understand.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. And no matter what, you keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
I actually first spoke about this in a video that I uploaded to my TikTok page a while ago, link in the description. But The Last of Us shows us that there's always a chance for redemption, for new beginnings. Even when the world is in the state that it's in, and you've been given the short end of the stick, with enough time people are presented with second chances in life. Normally this might not be that obvious to most people though, so what does Naughty Dog do? They show Joel's life over the years, and we get to see how he's given a second chance in two major ways: his relationship with his brother Tommy, and his ability to love and care for someone again. After the death of his daughter, Joel understandably grows colder and more reserved. Although he tries to survive alongside Tommy for a while, he continues to lose his sense of humanity until it becomes too overwhelming for his brother. Their outlooks on their current predicament is just too different at this point, and so they end up parting ways. Now fate seems to bring these two together later in the game, and unfortunately they still continue to butt heads, and that's because at this point, their perspectives are still so different. The breaking point is when Joel tries to hand off Ellie to Tommy so that he can deliver her to the Fireflies, but Tommy's not having any of it.
We ain't back in Boston. You lay your hands on me again, it won't end well for you.
Ultimately, Tommy mentions that at this stage in his life, his family and his community are the most important things to him. But let's put a hold on that for now, and let's revisit it later in the video. The main one that I actually wanted to focus on here was Joel's ability to love and care for someone. The clip I showed from the beginning of this segment was pulled from the end of the game. After Joel decides to save Ellie's life, we see a man who's lost so much, who's become so jaded and so cynical about the world, find a reason to continue living. I think this resonates so well because we see a man get broken down right in front of our own eyes. Sure, you could argue that he found a companion in Tess, but it's obvious at this point that the Joel we saw before the outbreak isn't the same Joel that we see now. He's a shell of his former self, forced to become something else out of necessity. I mean, let's be real, if your odds of surviving are as low as they are, does humanity compassion really serve you that much of a purpose? Instead, it actually could end up hurting you and putting you in dangerous situations like this.
Put your seatbelt on, Ellie.
Well, what about the guy?
He ain't even hurt.
So let's circle back to Ellie here. She was handed off to Joel at the beginning of the game as part of a direct job from Marlene. Although she was only meant to be seen as precious cargo by Joel, he slowly begins to soften up towards her, and it's not hard to see why. The obvious parallels are there between Ellie and his own daughter, who he lost at the beginning of the game. As their journey continues, he himself comes to the realization that he has a reason to continue fighting. Even in this apocalyptic wasteland, with enough time, life presents him with another opportunity to open his heart to someone and to learn what it means to be human again. And that leads me to my next point. The Last of Us reminds us that life is about people. It's often said that in the face of true danger and difficult times, humans will resort to their most basic biological code. One aspect of this that I think we've continued to downplay and lose over the years as a whole is our emphasis on people and our communities. Sure, the idea of being alone seems great to a lot of people. Now make no mistake, I really enjoy my alone time, but it'd be disingenuous to ignore the role that people play in our own lives. Life has changed a lot with the rise of the internet and social media especially. Even with the ability to connect with people all over the world, it seems like on average, people are lonelier than ever before. There's even data that suggests that an increasing number of people don't know anything about their own neighbors, including their name. The role of people, family, and community is something that's been explored countless times before, but it still continues to resonate with us. And The Last of Us is no exception. In the world of The Last of Us, when you've been stripped of all material goods and all the luxuries of life, what are you really left with? What becomes your source of happiness? Now this brings us to Joel. Joel didn't really have that reason. He kind of just survived because, well, that's just what you do. But his tone and demeanor have completely shifted by the end of the game. You can see him actually starting to enjoy the little things again. And that's all because of the company he keeps. And he's not the only character who has a reason to continue fighting. At some point in the game, Joel and Ellie run into Henry and his younger brother Sam. Henry obviously cares deeply for Sam. You can see it in how overprotective he is. And that's because for Henry, Sam is his reason to continue fighting. So what happens when that's gone?
Henry, no!
Oh my god.
In an already bleak world, someone's last source of light was suddenly removed. And unfortunately, we see the consequences of that as well. One of the most fascinating parts about this game is that it shows us how selfish we can become when we value other people. It's actually the reason that Tommy's group is so protective of their own community. It's actually why he refused to help his own brother, because it meant jeopardizing his own safety, which in turn would have affected his wife and their whole camp. If what Tommy says about his family being important to him is indeed true, then his refusal to help Joel makes perfect sense. There's times where I'd argue that it's okay to be selfish if it means that the people you value the most are safe. I'm sure everyone would love to help out where they can, but there's times when helping a stranger means putting the people close to you at risk. Me personally, I wouldn't say that that's a risk I'm willing to take. Joel's decision to save Ellie's life and to lie to her at the end of the game could be viewed as a morally wrong one. He has the ability to potentially save the world, and Ellie herself is fine with the procedure, but he lies to her, and we understand why he does it. Some of us might even be happy that he did, which on paper is kind of crazy to think. Rather than saving the world, Joel finally gets a second chance at having someone important in his life, and because we the audience see what he's gone through, we sympathize with him. Instead of giving up this second chance and going back to his life of loneliness, this time he decides to hold on to it.
You can't deny the view, though.
To this day, The Last of Us separates itself when it comes to storytelling and character development in video games. With how cinematic and how well received the game was, and how much money it made, it's no surprise that a TV series was greenlit. Now just being real here, fans have had a lot of bad luck when it comes to recreating video games on the big and small screens. That being said, I hope that this show is able to recreate what made the game so impactful and so memorable. If the show can focus on these few key themes and lessons that we discussed in the video, then we should be able to see a solid recreation of the game we all know and love. If you made it this far in the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe for more videos like this. In the coming weeks, I have videos on God of War, Dragon Ball Z, and Batman to name a few. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe. With all that said, thanks for watching.